I had always been invisible. That was the way of survival for those like me, born of a servant's womb, raised in the shadows of noble halls, taught to make myself small. My footsteps were trained to vanish on polished stone, my voice to dissolve before it reached a master's ear. I learned to carry trays without clatter, to bow before a gaze had time to notice me, to exist like dust drifting in shafts of light, seen only if the sun fell just right and otherwise ignored. But invisibility is fragile. All it takes is one command, and the world remembers you exist. The night it began, the Sioux estate trembled with panic. Candles burned to stubs as messengers ran through the corridors, voices sharp with fear. The young lord, Wren, golden heir to the house, beloved son of my father's lawful wife, was gone, disappeared like mist before dawn, the very eve the crown prince was to arrive. I stood at the edge of the hall, tray clutched to my chest, while nobles shouted, while by Wren's full brother paced like a caged hound, snarling accusations at the servants. My father, Lord Sioux, sat rigid on his chair, knuckles white as bone upon the carved arms. His gaze was a blade that cut across the chamber until it fell upon me. "You," he hissed. My stomach turned to ice. "My lord?" "Come forward," I obeyed. To disobey was death of a different kind. His eyes roved over me, not with a father's affection, for he had none to spare for a bastard son, but with calculation. My hair was dark like Wren's, my features cut with some echo of the same bloodline. A resemblance, slight but enough for a desperate man. "You will be Wren," he said. I nearly dropped the tray. "My lord, I cannot." His hand struck the air, silencing me before the blow could fall on my cheek. "You will, or this house is disgraced, ruined, stripped of its favor. Do you wish to see your mother cast into the street for your cowardice? Do you wish to see her starve?" The breath caught in my throat. I bowed low to hide the tremor in my lips. "No, my lord." "Then you will wear your brother's face. You will bow, you will smile little, you will speak less. If you falter, you will pay with your life and hers." So the mask was given to me. They stripped away my servant's garb, bathed me in scented water until the skin beneath my nails burned. Robes of blue silk, heavy with gold thread, fell upon my shoulders. A servant brushed my hair sleek, tying it with a pearl pin that felt like a chain. Another dusted my face with powder, shaping me into Wren's likeness. When at last I looked into the bronze mirror, I did not know the boy who stared back. I hated him already. By the time the horn announced the crown prince's arrival, my heart pounded so loud I feared all would hear it. The great hall shimmered with banners and lantern light, nobles in brocade gathering like jeweled birds. I walked at my father's side, every step rehearsed in silence, though my knees wished to buckle. Then he entered, the crown prince. The chamber stilled as though even the air held its breath. He was tall, clad in robes of crimson lined with black, his presence sharp as a drawn sword. His gaze swept the hall, cool and commanding, and when it fell upon me, I thought I might be pierced through. Lord Sioux bent low in welcome. I followed, lowering myself in the bow Wren should have given. Yet I faltered, only a fraction too shallow, a heartbeat too late. Enough. The prince's eyes narrowed. "You are Sioux Wren," he said, his voice deep, resonant, a question and an accusation both. "Yes, your highness." I forced the words past a dry throat. "You speak." He tilted his head, gaze searching. "Like a servant." The blood in my veins froze. Around us courtiers shifted, curious, but none dared breathe too loudly. I dropped my eyes, as though shame explained the slip. "Forgive me, highness. I am nervous in your presence." A long silence. Then, to my horror, he stepped closer. "Look at me." I obeyed, though every instinct screamed to keep my head bowed. His eyes were dark, gleaming like polished obsidian, and they studied me with unnerving precision, as though stripping away powder, silk, and stolen name. For one terrible, shattering instant, I felt seen. "Strange," he murmured so low only I could hear. "Your face is your brother's, but your eyes, they are someone else entirely. Yes, I am a servant in blue robes with golden art at this party." The prince was wearing a red-black dress. My lips parted, but no sound came. The prince's mouth curved, not quite a smile. I prefer to see the eyes of the man I speak with. And then he turned away, leaving me gasping in silence while the hall resumed its rhythm around us. I had survived. Barely. Yet as the banquet continued, I felt his gaze return to me again and again, burning hotter than the torches that lined the chamber. And in the hollow of my chest, where fear had always lived, something else flickered, a dangerous, forbidden spark. Not freedom, not safety, but the memory of being seen. The banquet should have ended my role. I had survived one night. Surely the prince would turn his attention elsewhere, and I could retreat back into shadow. That was what I told myself as the servants cleared the hall and the nobles spilled into their carriages, leaving only echoes of music behind. But the crown prince did not forget me. He sought me out, again and again. At first it was subtle, a glance across a courtyard, the brush of his gaze during a morning audience. Enough to set my nerves on edge, but not enough to draw comment. Yet soon he was deliberate. A walk in the gardens, where he dismissed all others with a single raised hand. A pause at the archery grounds, where his words carried not to the crowd, but to me alone. A question at dinner, pointed and unexpected, forcing me to speak when I would rather have remained silent. Every time I played the role my father demanded. Wren's mask, noble, aloof, restrained. But behind it my heart stuttered like a caged bird, wings thrashing. The prince unsettled me because he did not treat me as a mask. He looked at me as though he already knew. One afternoon he found me in the east garden. The others had drifted away, leaving only the hush of wind through plum blossoms. I had bent to study the petals scattered across the gravel path, anything to avoid his eyes. "You are quiet," he said, approaching without ceremony. I bowed, my voice low. "I am as your highness prefers." "And what do you prefer?" The question struck like an arrow. No one asked what I preferred. Not my father, not my brother, not even my own heart, which I had trained to silence. "I prefer—" My tongue faltered. I swallowed. "To serve well." He circled me slowly as though considering the truth of my words. "A lord is not a servant," he said at last. The back of my neck prickled. I dared not meet his eyes. "Look at me," he said. I obeyed. Always I obeyed. His gaze locked with mine, steady, unyielding. "You carry yourself like one born to bow, yet you wear silk and pearls. Tell me, Su-Ren, do they feel heavy?" I could not breathe. He leaned closer, so close I could smell the faint spice of his robes. His voice lowered. "Or do they feel like chains?" Something within me cracked, my lips parted, but no words came. He watched, searching my silence, then smiled faintly, as though my lack of denial was answer enough. "Interesting," he murmured, before turning away. I sagged, weak with relief and terror both. Bai noticed, of course. How could he not? My half-brother's eyes followed me with a venom sharper than any blade. He had always despised me, bastard blood, servant's son, shame made flesh. But now, with the crown prince's gaze bent toward me instead of him, his hatred became something else. Fire licking at dry tinder. "You enjoy this, don't you?" he spat one evening, catching me in the servants' corridor where shadows clung. "You enjoy pretending to be what you are not." I lowered my head. "I do only what father commands." "Liar!" He seized my collar, shoving me against the wall. His breath stank of wine. "You think because the prince speaks to you, you matter. You are nothing, Leon, nothing." I clenched my fists at my sides. Not from defiance, never that, but to keep my trembling hidden. "If he knew the truth," Bai hissed, pressing harder, "he would cast you aside like filth." A voice cut through the corridor like steel drawn from a scabbard. "Would I?" B froze. The crown prince stood at the far end of the passage, his expression unreadable but his presence suffocating. He strode forward, each step measured, until he stood before us. "Release him," he ordered. Bai faltered. "Your Highness, I—" "Now." With a reluctant snarl, B shoved me aside. I stumbled, catching myself against the wall, my breath ragged. The prince's gaze flicked over me, then pinned B like a hawk pinning prey. "You disgrace yourself and your house by laying hands on your kin in drunken anger." B's face flushed crimson. He is no kin of mine. The prince's tone sharpened. Do you contradict me? Silence. Bai dropped his eyes, fists trembling. Go, the prince commanded. Bai fled, his fury trailing behind him like smoke. I stood rooted, my chest heaving. Shame, fear, relief, they tangled until I could not tell one from the other. The prince turned back to me. For a long moment he said nothing, only studied me with that same relentless intensity. Then he spoke softly but firmly. Leon. The name struck me harder than B's shove. No one here called me by it. Only my mother, in the quiet of our small chamber, whispered it as if it were fragile enough to break. To hear it now, from him. You know, I breathed, barely more than a whisper. His eyes did not waver. I knew the moment I saw you. My knees weakened. Then why let me continue? His hand lifted, not quite touching my face, but close enough that I felt the warmth of it. Because I wanted you, not the mask. The world spun. I should have denied him, should have begged him to keep silence, should have fled. But I could do none of these things. His presence bound me more tightly than silk cords ever could. You are dangerous, I whispered. A faint smile curved his lips. And you are mine. Then his hand cupped my cheek, tilting my face upward, and his mouth claimed mine. The kiss was not gentle. It was deliberate, possessive, searing. My breath caught as heat flared through me, terror tangled with something fiercer, deeper, more consuming than I had ever known. For a heartbeat, I forgot who I was, forgot the mask, forgot the world. There was only his lips, his hand, his will upon me. When he drew back, my body trembled, my lips parted in shock. His gaze burned into me. Now, he said softly, you cannot run from me. I lay awake that night staring at the rafters above my chamber. The kiss lingered on my lips like a brand, impossible to forget. My heart warred with itself. This could not be. I was a servant's son, a bastard, a lie wrapped in silk. To be desired by the crown prince was peril, madness. If the truth came to light, I would be executed, and yet part of me yearned for him. Not for his crown, not for his power, but for the way he looked at me. For the way he spoke my name. For the way he had seen me when all my life I had been nothing but invisible. I pressed a hand to my chest where my heart beat too fast, too wild. The mask was trembling, and I feared it would soon shatter. The festival of lanterns arrived as if the heavens themselves had dressed for court. Silk streamed from balconies. Musicians filled the air with notes that fluttered like sparrows. Servants hurried with baskets of paper lanterns painted in crimson and gold, each one a vessel for a noble's whispered wish. By tradition, the lanterns would be lit and released into the night sky, carrying prayers toward the stars. For days I had dreaded this night. The prince had insisted I stand beside him on the balcony overlooking the courtyard, where the entire court would gather. It was no small thing. Only chosen favorites or betrothed stood in such a place of honor. For me to appear there was a statement sharper than any proclamation. My hands trembled as I held the lantern given to me. Its fragile paper quivered with each breath I took, as though it too feared what the night would bring. The prince stood at my side, regal in robes of midnight blue embroidered with silver thread. Yet when he leaned close, his words were not the pronouncements of a sovereign, but the quiet murmur of a man. "What will you wish for?" he asked. My throat tightened. No answer felt safe. Yet the truth slipped from me like water escaping a cracked jar. "Freedom," I whispered. His gaze softened, though his smile curved with something more dangerous. "If freedom means leaving me, then I will not grant it." I stared at him, unable to respond. My chest burned with a mixture of yearning and terror. We lifted our lanterns together. Around us, nobles released theirs into the sky, filling the night with drifting stars of fire. Gasps of awe rippled through the crowd. And then, "Lies!" The word rang out sharp as a blade striking stone. The courtyard stilled. I knew that voice. My heart dropped into my stomach even before I turned to see him. Bai, standing below, his face alight with triumphant malice. "There!" he cried, pointing up at me with a hand that shook not from fear but from glee. "That man beside your highness. He is no noble lord. He is no heir of House Su. He is a servant's bastard. The crowd erupted. 100 voices thundered at once. Is it true? A servant? Wearing silks? Scandalous. A fraud. The air thickened with outrage. My fingers went numb, nearly letting the lantern slip. The mask I had worn so carefully shattered in an instant, exposed beneath B's venomous revelation. I bowed low, my voice breaking. Forgive me, Your Highness. Forgive me all. It is true. I am no lord. I am Leon, a servant. The murmurs turned to cries of disgust, mockery, shock. A servant standing beside the crown prince? Disgrace! Throw him out! My father's face, pale and furious, appeared among the nobles. My stepmother covered her smirk behind her fan. Bai laughed openly, the sound cruel and victorious. Shame burned my skin. My knees threatened to give. I wished I could vanish into the stones. But before the storm consumed me, a voice cut across the courtyard like a crack of thunder. Silence! The prince. The noise died instantly. He stepped forward, his presence blazing brighter than all the lanterns combined. His arm slid around my shoulders, not to restrain but to claim. You dare speak of him with contempt? His voice rang like steel. Then you insult me. For it is by my will that he stands here. The nobles faltered. Shock rippled through the crowd, and then the prince spoke words that seared themselves into my soul. He is mine! Chaos, outrage exploded once more. Your Highness, this is madness. A servant cannot stand beside the heir to the empire. It disgraces us all. The air trembled with fury and disbelief. Yet the prince's glare silenced them one by one. Who dares defy me? He demanded, his voice rising like a storm. Am I not your future sovereign? Do my words carry no weight? The nobles quailed, heads bowed. No one dared meet his eyes. Bai, desperate, shouted above the hush. He will ruin you. He will drag your name into the dirt. The prince turned his gaze upon him, colder than steel. The only ruin I see is the venom in your mouth. He raised his hand. Guards. Soldiers surged forward. Bai's defiance dissolved into panic as they seized him, his protests echoing off the marble walls. Father, he cried, twisting in their grip, you cannot let this stand. But Lord Su's silence was heavy as stone. He did not raise a hand. He did not speak. His jaw was set, his eyes hard. Bai's screams faded as he was dragged from the courtyard, leaving only silence behind. The prince looked back at me. His arm remained firm around my shoulders, as though he would shield me from every dagger of scorn. I trembled, my lips parting to speak, but no words came. The mask was gone. All that remained was me, Leon, servant's son, trembling beneath the eyes of the empire. And yet, I was not destroyed, for I had been claimed. That night I sat alone in the prince's chambers. The court had erupted into whispers sharper than knives. I had heard them even through the heavy doors, accusations of madness, of scandal, of betrayal to tradition. They mocked him now, the crown prince who had lowered himself to a servant, and it was all my fault. Tears burned my cheeks, my hands clenched in my lap. The door opened softly. He entered without announcement, his crown removed, his robes loosened. For a moment he looked not like the empire's heir, but like a man wearied by the weight of the world. You should hate me, I whispered as he approached. My voice shook. Because of me, they scorn you. Your name is stained. Your future. He knelt before me, his hands lifting my chin. His eyes burned with fierce clarity. Do you not understand? This is not a burden. It is my choice. Tears blurred my vision. Why? Why choose me? His smile was faint, fragile. Because in a hall filled with masks, you were the only one who trembled with truth. And that truth called to me, even if you hid it behind another name. The words broke something inside me. My lips trembled. I love you, I whispered. The admission dragged from the deepest place I had kept locked. He pulled me into his arms, and I knew my words had finally found their home. The following morning, the entire court assembled beneath the emperor's throne. The emperor sat in silence, his gaze unreadable as he regarded his son. The nobles crowded below, their faces taut with anticipation and unease. The crown prince stepped forward. His voice carried like thunder. Hear me now. I speak not as your prince, but as a man. This servant whom you despise, I name him my chosen. Gasps tore through the hall. A servant? Impossible. This cannot be allowed. Madness. The emperor's eyes narrowed. His silence pressed down heavier than any shout. Yet the prince did not waver. His hand found mine, firm and unshakable. Through the uproar, through the whispers, through the searing eyes of the court, he stood unbent. And so did I. I had thought the storm was over. The nobles' whispers dulled, the scandal cooled, and I learned to walk at the prince's side without stumbling. Yet peace in a palace is an illusion. Beneath the silk-draped halls, plots bred like snakes in the dark, and at the center of that dark sat the emperor. The crown prince's father was no man of indulgence. His eyes saw through silk, through masks, through flesh itself. When he called for us to attend him in the hall of heaven, my breath froze in my chest. We walked side by side into the cavernous chamber. Marble floors gleamed beneath our steps, and incense curled through the air, cloying, suffocating. Nobles lined the hall in hushed rows, their faces masks of reverence barely hiding anticipation. At the far end, upon a throne carved from jade, the emperor sat. He did not rise. He did not need to. His presence crushed the air from my lungs more effectively than any hand around my throat. My son, the emperor said at last, his voice slow, deliberate. You bring before me a matter that rattles the empire. The prince's shoulders squared. Yes, father. And you stand by this servant? I flinched at the word, though it was truth. The prince's hand found mine, bold before all eyes. I do. A ripple of shock moved through the nobles. The emperor's gaze flicked to our joined hands, then rose to my face. You, he said. What is your name? My mouth went dry. My knees threatened to give, yet somehow I forced my voice to work. Leon! The emperor studied me as one might study a strange insect pinned under glass. Do you understand what you have done, Leon? Yes, your majesty, I whispered. I deceived the court. I wore a mask not mine. I am guilty. Then why do you stand here? His words were not shouted, yet they struck harder than thunder. Why should you not be executed for your insolence? I dropped to my knees. The marble was cold beneath my palms. Because, your highness, because the prince commanded it. For a moment, silence reigned. Then the emperor's laughter rang out, not with mirth, but with disdain. So, he said, you admit you live only by his will. Yes, I breathed. The prince's voice cut through, sharp with steel. No, he lives by mine because I choose him. That is the power of a sovereign, to choose, and I will not release him. Gasps broke through the hall. The emperor's eyes narrowed. You defy me? I honor you, the prince countered, his chin lifted, his tone unyielding. By standing true. You taught me that a ruler must see not only what pleases the court, but what binds the heart, and my heart is bound here. The hall trembled with silence. The emperor regarded his son for a long, terrible moment, then shifted his gaze back to me. You, rise. I obeyed, though my knees shook. The emperor leaned forward. His eyes were sharp as blades. If you are to remain by his side, then you will prove you are no weakness. My blood ran cold. How? By surviving. A heavy clang echoed as he struck the jade arm of his throne. The words that followed chilled me to the bone. Release the traitor. Bai returned like a shadow given flesh. They brought him into the hall, wrists bound in iron, but his eyes burned with fury. His smirk was jagged as broken glass when it fell on me. So, he hissed, you cling to him still. The emperor's voice cut through. This matter has divided the court. Let it be decided by trial. One son of House Su against the other. If you win, he fixed his gaze on Bai, you reclaim honor. If you win, his eyes pierced me, you prove you are worthy. The prince's voice thundered. No, this is madness! But the emperor raised a hand. Enough. Tomorrow at dawn, the matter will be sealed. The hall erupted in murmurs. I swayed, my vision blurring. A duel. Against Bai. I was no warrior. I had trained my hands to polish silver, to sweep floors, not to wield blades. But the emperor had spoken, and in this palace, words were law. That night, the prince raged. He stormed his chamber, fists slamming against carved pillars, eyes burning like a tempest barely contained. "He would throw you to death as if you were nothing," his voice cracked. "If I disobey, I can't protect you. If I obey, I risk losing you." I stood silently, trembling, until he seized my shoulders. "Leon, listen to me. Tomorrow, you must not fight. Refuse. I will find a way." I shook my head, my voice breaking. "If I refuse, I am already defeated. Then Bai wins, and they will tear me from you forever." His grip tightened. "And if you fight, he will kill you." I forced a smile, fragile as a cracked cup. "Then remember me." His breath hitched, his forehead pressed to mine. "No, I will not remember. I will hold you. I will not let go. Do you understand?" Tears stung my eyes. My hands clutched his sleeves. "Then hold me tonight, as if it were the last time." And he did. Dawn broke crimson. The courtyard was transformed into an arena. Nobles crowded balconies, their eager eyes fixed upon the stone circle below. Soldiers lined the edges, spears gleaming. I stood within, a wooden practice blade thrust into my shaking hands. Across from me, Bai flexed his wrists, iron cuffs freshly struck away. A true sword glinted in his grip. "Unfair," the prince shouted, stepping forward. "You arm him with steel and my beloved with wood?" The emperor's voice was flat. "If he is truly worthy, no weapon matters." A cruel laugh burst from Bai. "At last, justice." The drum sounded. Bai lunged. I barely raised my weapon in time. The clash rang through my bones. My arms screamed with effort as I stumbled back, the blade nearly torn from my grip. He pressed again, relentless, eyes wild with hate. Each strike came faster, harder, until sparks danced from the stone. "You should have stayed in the dirt where you belonged," B spat, driving me back. "You ruined me. You stole what was mine. I tripped, fell hard against the ground. His sword arced high, gleaming. "No!" The prince's cry tore the air. He surged forward, but guards barred his way. The blade fell. Instinct drove me. I rolled, the steel biting stone where my head had been. With a desperate cry, I swung my wooden blade upward. It struck Bai's wrist. A hollow crack rang out. His sword clattered to the ground. Gasps roared from the crowd. Bai's scream split the morning. Rage consumed him. He lunged barehanded, fingers clawing for my throat, and I, shaking, terrified, raised my weapon again. I did not strike to kill, only to stop. The wood slammed against his chest. He collapsed to the stones, breath ragged, fury shattered. Silence. The emperor's voice rose, cold and final. "The trial is ended. The servant lives." The crowd erupted in shock. Some cried foul, others murmured of fate, of omens. The prince broke through the guards, rushing to my side, seizing me into his arms. "You did it," he whispered fiercely, his lips trembling against my hair. "You lived!" I clung to him, shaking with sobs, unable to speak. Bai was dragged away, defeated, his screams echoing into silence. His hatred lingered, I knew, like a snake coiled in darkness. But for now, I had survived. The emperor rose from his throne. His gaze cut through the uproar, silencing all. "You have chosen," he said to his son. "Very well. Bear the weight of it. If this servant fails you, the stain will be upon you alone." The prince bowed, unyielding. "I accept." And with that, the emperor turned, his robes sweeping like thunderclouds, leaving the hall in awed silence. That night, lanterns again lit the sky. The prince and I stood together, hand in hand, upon the balcony. The court still whispered, still doubted, still despised. But their voices no longer mattered. "You wished for freedom," he said softly. I leaned against him, eyes following the drifting lights. "Perhaps freedom is not an escape. Perhaps it is choosing where to remain." His arms tightened around me. "Then remain with me." I looked at him, at the man who had risked the empire for a servant's son, at the prince who had kissed me, claimed me, defended me, loved me. And I whispered, always. The lanterns rose higher, carrying the wishes of 1,000 nobles. But mine had already been granted, not by the stars, by him, by love, forever. It was on such a night that he brought the wine. The prince held my hand. My heart flipped, a startled bird battering its wings against the cage of my ribs. His palm was warm, steady, as though he had always known the exact shape of my fingers, as though he had been waiting his whole life just to close his hand around mine. We sat together in his private chamber, the world shut away beyond the heavy doors. A single lamp burned low, its light soft as breath. He poured into 2 cups, the crimson liquid catching the glow like liquid fire. He lifted one, offering it to me. The ruby wine glowed in the lamplight like blood. I stared at the ripples quivering with my trembling hand. My voice came low, almost swallowed by the silence. "If I drink," I whispered, "I will fall deeper." He leaned close, the heat of his breath brushing my cheek. His eyes caught the lamp's glow, fierce and tender at once. "Then fall," he murmured. "I will catch you." Our cups touched. A hollow chime filled the room. And for the first time I drank, not as Ren, the noble mask, but as myself. The wine burned my throat, sweet and sharp all at once. My chest ached with something I could no longer hold back. He set his cup aside, his gaze never leaving me. "Leon," he said, the name a vow on his tongue. "Dance with me." I laughed softly, startled. "Here? Alone?" "Here. Alone. Where no one can see us but the gods." His hand found mine, tugging me gently to my feet. Music was absent, yet the rhythm of our hearts was enough. He guided me across the carpet, each step slow, unhurried, his warmth steady against me. I trembled at first, clumsy, uncertain, but his grip was sure, his presence a shelter. My body loosened, swayed into his, until I no longer thought of steps, only of him. The world blurred, the room spun. Wine and desire coursed through me, dizzying, terrifying, intoxicating. And then the words tore free. "I love you." They fell between us, fragile as glass, unstoppable once spoken. My chest heaved, my lips parted, my eyes stung. "I love you," I said again, stronger, as if by repeating I could carve them into stone. His breath caught. Then his mouth was upon mine. The kiss was deep, urgent, consuming. His arms crushed me to him, his heartbeat thundered against mine. I melted, I burned, I shattered, I became whole. The taste of wine lingered on his lips, sweet and fierce, and I drank it as though it were life itself. When we finally parted, gasping, our foreheads pressed together. "Say it again," he whispered. "I love you," I breathed. His smile broke like dawn. "And I you, more than crown, more than empire. If the world breaks for it, let it." And we danced again, lips meeting between steps, laughter tangled with tears, 2 shadows swaying beneath lamplight until the night faded into pale dawn.